Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Lines. My name is Sarah, I'm the artist behind Pinselgeschichten, and today I'm going to finish this page here in the Outlander coloring book. The Scottish Piper is colored and done, and next week I will move on to the next page. I talked to you about how I shade clothing and how I get contrast while still staying within the same range of colors that I used before. So I hope you find this interesting and you will enjoy it. Final part, I hope. I'm actually filming back to back, so I really hope I can finish this picture today. And I want to start with the beard of the bagpiper and give him some lovely colors. And for that, I choose these 4 pencils. I do have walnut brown, dark sepia, Payne's gray, and dark indigo in my hand. And first of all, I gotta sharpen them, because except for the walnut brown, all the others are rather blunt on my tip here, and that is something I don't really like. When I do hair, I like to have a little bit of a sharper tip. I'm gonna start with the walnut, which is the lightest brown. I'm gonna start here where the lights hit the hair and on the beard and on his head. And because I have the spine here and I find that quite uncomfortable when coloring, I'm going to flip my page upside down and start coloring the other way around. I'm gonna darken the beard quite a bit. The brown that I had as my underpainting was a little lighter, as you can see, and with my lightest color I'm already darkening things quite a bit, but I want a little bit of a nice contrast here, so I'm very lightly coloring the hair with my walnut color and darkening things up quite a bit here. I want way more contrast between the skin tone and the beard, and I don't want to go too light because I do have a light brown on the bagpipe as well, and I don't want this to look too similar. Now that I do have my lights in, I can go in with my dark sepia, and I'm gonna color this in chunks, meaning I will switch to the Payne's gray and the indigo in a second here, because I don't want to lose definition of the beard of those strands of hair. I want this to be a little more chunky than the illustration indicated, so I'm not gonna color every strand of hair like it is depicted, like on its own. I'm coloring in chunks, like I said. Because I think the line work is just a little irritating, maybe. Need to go back to my walnut here and clean up that section here. And then on to my dark gray. And a little bit of indigo, 'cause why not? When you have a favorite shading color, use it. Use it wherever it fits. Gonna move on to this section here around the mouth, like the hair on top of the lip. And again, just like in the last video, after having the lunch break, I think the landscapers are at it again and make quite a bit of noise in the background. So I'm sorry for that, but I can't do anything about it. If I'm not able to get rid of that noise in post-production, I'm very sorry about that. A little more of my walnut here on the front. And then moving on to that section here. Gotta adjust my cardstock. And this will blend into the skin pretty nicely because I used that dark sepia on the skin as well. So this will be a nice transition from beard to skin when it comes to the color. Just will blend in rather well. A little more of the dark gray. And some more of the indigo. Going back to my sepia again. I'm going to use a tiny little bit of the walnut here to clean up the edges of the hair. Yep, I do like that. I need to clean up here a little bit. And then I can move on to the lower section here. As you can see, I'm not solidly coloring in the sepia here on the hair. I'm leaving a few parts uncolored because I want to have a little bit... Oh gosh, is this annoying. I'm sorry, guys. I want a little bit of the underpainting to see through. because I want to have a little bit of a difference between the Payne's Gray and the sepia and the indigo. And I'm gonna define some of the strands, very few only, like with the curves here. And then I'm going to use my walnut to blend things a little bit where I didn't put down as much of the other pencils. Just have some lighter strands of hair there. Especially here where the light hits the hair. And Jan is coming home, so it's really gonna get loud for a second and you might hear him do things, so. Like, for example, removing his shoes. It's very lovely. He's as quiet as can be when he comes home and I'm filming. It's very nice. So, on to the last chunk of the hair. So I'm adding a little more of my sepia pencil before going on to the Payne's Gray. Hi.
Hi.
How was school?
Bitte?
How was school?
Oh, school was awesome. Especially, they had a celebration, kinda.
Okay.
Am I on tape? Yes.
Yes, you are. Well, with your voice, you're not in camera.
Poor audience.
you want to sit down and chat to me, you can just remove this onto here and sit and talk if
no,
you like.
I want to smoke a cigarette.
Well, you gotta go on your own, and you gotta close my room door behind you because the background noise is really loud. I don't know what they're doing out there.
No, they're blowing.
With the leaf blower?
Leaf blower.
Ah, okay. I thought they were chopping down trees or something because it sounded like a saw almost.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's leaf blower and lawnmower.
Ah, I see. So a lot of landscaping to make our apartment complex pretty.
They're tidying up.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'm adding a little more of the walnut here just to have a little bit of a lighter chunk of hair. And now I'm going to add definition of certain chunks of hair here with my indigo. And now you know what the noise in the background is, what's happening at my apartment. No, please, can you please go on my patio for smoking? My chair is dry. Because this is way too loud if you go to the big patio. And close my door, please. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
All doors shut.
Wonderful. What a lovely guy. He really wants my videos to be as high quality as possible, at least when it comes to audio. So I'm adding just the tiniest bit of sepia here, just to add a little bit of contrast. And now I'm going to add a little bit of indigo just to have that section of this chunk of hair and this strand of hair be a little bit more contrasty for you to be able to see the difference of all of that. So that would be the hair. I might want to, add a little bit of indigo here, just indicate another strand going down. Yeah, that's more like it. Now I can move on to the pipe, the bagpipe, and I want. What kind of brown do I want? Let me see. I want something like this, which is a brown ochre. And then I want to have a little bit of a darker tone that is not too similar to the beard. So I'm going for nougat for now. And I'm gonna start with the nougat and draw in the lines where those pipes here are having some separation, just to not lose that detail when I go over it with my brown ochre. So I'm just getting back detail. There's two pipes here. Something like this. Sorry if my big old head is too much in frame, but I gotta look down on the picture like with quite straight angle. Otherwise I get a bit of a glare. That's happening rather quickly when you have the colored pencils on top. They have quite the shine. So it goes something like this, and now I can color in with my lighter brown. And I'm starting from the bottom here, from the mouth where there's a little shadow cast. And then I'm going in the mid-section because there's actually light hitting on the left and right of the pipe. So I'm gonna color this a little darker in the middle where there's the shadow. And then there's a lot of shadow here where there's hardly any light hitting it. I'm reversing the process. Starting at the lower section of the pipe. And I'm going to bring in other shades as well, as for example here my dark sepia. Just gonna bring that in to clean up the lines. And at this point I'm going bit by bit on the pipe. I'm not gonna color everything with the nougat and then everything with the sepia, but I'm actually layering things a little more. So I'm going back to the walnut that I used on the hair just to intensify those shadows, and I will color in the rest here, like where I haven't shaded before with my was it brown ochre? I think it was. Yeah, brown ochre. And of course I have to have a little bit of indigo, just a tiny bit. I think it just enriches the look of something. It deepens the shadows a bit more, makes them a little more rich and not that flat looking, if you know what I mean. Blending on top with my brown ochre, and there's the first part. On to the next. Again, adding shadows first. Going over the lines again, not to lose detail. And adding a little bit of my light brown. Next section. I think this process is pretty straightforward. I think there's no mystery there why I do what. So it's just pretty much repeating the process for all of these bits of the pipe. Sorry. All right, next one. So I'm just going to work my way up the pipe, doing the exact same thing over and over again with all of the sections here. There's only 3 more left on this particular pipe, but I'm going to do the same thing over here and then on this lower section too. But I will probably go a little darker on this particular one here, so it's not exactly the same process with that final section, but it is close enough. More of the brown ochre. And I'm very lightly going to outline the pipe too, just to increase the contrast between the clouds and the building here. Onto the bigger section, darkening that shadow quite a bit with my Nougat pencil. Then moving on to the dark sepia. And the indigo. Adding in the next line. And then going on top with my brown ochre. Only to the left and the right of my shadows. A little more with the sepia. And then outlining with my indigo. on to the final part for this particular pipe. Again, the nougat and the dark sepia. Here in the mouth there's a little more of a shadow cast, so I will just broaden the darker bits there, make it a little wider than I do the rest of the pipe. Then going in with my brown ochre. And again outlining with my indigo pencil. I want a little more, a lighter tone here. There we go. On to the next pipe. But I need to sharpen my pencils again. This is what I had said in previous videos when I worked on this page. You go through quite a bit of pencil when you work on top of chalky acrylic paint. So you might have to sharpen your pencils a little more often. But I think that's no problem at all. You just have to be aware. And I'm just going to repeat the process here for the other pipe. So this one here is a little bit different to shade since there's no light coming from the left hand side. I just will have the light brown ochre at the right hand side, because the other pipe here casts a shadow as well, so there is no light reflecting from that section, which means I just have to go way darker towards the left hand side. And just have the highlight on the right hand side here. I'm sorry. Ooh. to the right hand side, blending, 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 and whoops, a little bit of an outline here towards the right hand side. Gosh, sorry about that. So onto the sepia pencil again, outlining my next section here. Then going in with the nougat. Building up color by going on top with sepia. I'm not pulling the sepia as far out as I did the nougat because I want to have like a gradient look, but it's only a very thin section that only has the nougat pencil on top and not the sepia pencil, and it's the same thing with the indigo. Not coloring the whole section that had the sepia pencil. So going in from the right with my brown ochre, blending everything together. A little more of the nougat to have a very gradient transition from the darks to the light. And then a little outline here for the pipe. Simple as that. Going to color the next two sections together, and we'll just add a line in between here. And then adding my light brown. And a little bit of an outline, cleaning up the shapes of things. And last but not least, I'm going to do the reverse thing on this pipe. So on this one, the left hand side is lit up. This is where the light hits. So I will have the light brown on the left hand side this time. So I'm just gonna get in here with my nougat and then the dark sepia. I also have to darken those sections between the beard here and just make it one dark brown place. A little bit of my indigo. And of course, the brown ochre. Excuse me. Now for the separation between the two pipes here, I'm going to bring in the Payne's Gray just to enhance that even more. Get a little bit of my indigo outline. And on to the next. This goes rather quickly, don't you think? At least it feels like this. Now I have to check at the camera again if I'm actually right or if it takes way longer than it feels. I had mentioned that in the last video, that sometimes the process takes longer than you think it does, and sometimes it's quite the opposite. So let's see what it is like this time round. So again, some indigo, going in with my brown ochre. Cleaning up edges, enhancing a bit of contrast. And I'm using the Payne's Gray to enhance that shadow here even more between the pipes. To the next section, again, nougat first, sepia second, indigo third, brown ochre fourth, back to the indigo, cleaning up my edge. And adding a little bit of Payne's Gray between those pipes here. There we go. Guess what? Next part of the pipe is not colored differently. It's the same process over and over again for the same sections. Or not the same sections, but similar sections. For the last bits, gonna do it all in one go. So nougat, sepia, gonna color in those lines already. Indigo. Brown ochre, more outlining, And a little bit of Payne's Gray for the right-hand side. There we go. These are the pipes. I'm gonna move on to this one here. Now, this is a little different. It's the same wood, but the light hits differently. There's just a smidge of light up here on that section, and everything else is rather dark. So I'm going in with my light brown ochre here first. This is where the light hits. Anything else is quite dark. So all the rest I'm gonna have a little bit of nougat on top. And you might ask why I'm not going in with sepia right away, where I know that these are quite the dark sections. Actually, I like to build up color. This is something that I find very enjoyable and also quite logic when it comes to coloring. It's building layers and layers of color. So I'm having a lighter part where I know that there's going to be very, very dark shades. So I'm just having the lighter bit, the mid-tone, so to say, underneath, and then put the dark color on top. With other media, say watercolors, for example, or ink, if you don't put all the colors you used for the mid-tone section, if you don't put that underneath where you shade and just put the shadow color on top, the hue of the color will be different when you color on white or green paper, or when you paint on that kind of paper. So I just picked up that process of building up layers with watercoloring, and that ensures that I do have the same hue of a color. And I'm just getting a little darker, and it might be that my doorbell is gonna ring in a second, because I think this is Amazon Logistics, which means I do get a couple of packages, because I ordered Christmas gifts for my niece and nephew and for Jörn's kids. And I think they're gonna be delivered now, because it looks like that particular logistics company. So need a little bit of my light brown here. And this is where I'm going to add a little bit of black. I hardly ever use black pencils for shading. It's more for outlining. Or I use black pencils only on top of very many other shading colors, because I think black makes things look a little flat. But with these very dark bits here, I kind of have to use a bit of black. I'm also going to use it to outline the pipe down here. I'm getting back to my indigo and dark sepia to outline here on the lighter sections. Yep, that's my door.
Here.
I'm already on my way. This is the Amazon. Ja, geht schon wieder die Tür nicht auf, kannst du eben?
Ja, klar.
Der lehnt immer dagegen, der Arsch. Kannst du ihm das nochmal sagen, soll sich nicht dagegen lehnen, dann geht doch die Tür auf.
Ja.
Du hast ein Paket.
Ja, stell's irgendwo hin. Danke.
Ich habe jetzt die...
Ich bin am Film.
Oh, sorry.
So that was a delivery. On to the next part here. Okay. All right. That's it for the pipes. Now I can go on to the bag itself. And I'm going a little more yellowish in tint. So I'm using Naples yellow, dark Naples yellow, light yellow ochre, and then I'm going in with a little bit of browns that I already used to shade. But first I want to put on the highlights. So there's the light section up here. And up here, where the light hits, where nothing is really casting a shadow on anything. And the same goes for this section here. But it's only very slim here, because then the pipe casts the shadow. So I'm starting with my lightest color. And then bringing in the next color, which is a little darker. And there were ink lines here that you still can see. I'm going to work on those a little later when I get my values in first. And then I'm going to, oh, I forgot a section. Haha. There's a little bit of a lighter part down here, but not as super light as it is on top. And I'm gonna pull a little more of the lighter section here. And I can go in with my darkest pencil of these yellows. Bring in the next part. And then I'm moving on to the very dark colors, because everything else is really in the shadows, so I can use browns instead of yellows. I want this to be a little smoother here. And then I can go in with my brown ochre, start coloring the shadow sections. So this dip here, for example, is one. Next one is up here on the other part of the pipe, and this pipe casts a shadow. Same goes here. This is where I bring in my shading colors, which are, I'm gonna go with the walnut instead of the sepia here, just to change things up a bit and not have everything look too samey. I will, of course, add a little bit of indigo, because why not? Just makes this dark walnut brown so much richer. So I'm just connecting those two yellow parts here, that one and that one. And I will bring in my yellow pencils again to blend things together. And again, I'm taking care of these lines here that I still can see through with my dark walnut brown. I'm not gonna take care of any lines that I can't see. But there's still quite a few that peek through the acrylic paint and the colored pencil. Very softly blending those colors together, and where there is a very dark shadow or one of these wrinkle lines, I'm adding the walnut brown and or the indigo pencil. Like for example here, where the pipe casts a shadow. Should should be maybe a little wider. Like so. Now I have to sharpen my pencil again and also start the vlogging camera. On to the next section up here. And then the majority of this backpack will this back pipe will have that brown ochre pencil. Then I can go on top with my walnuts. So I'm starting here where there's just a shadow from the bagpiper because of the clothes and the way he holds that pipe. Adding quite a bit of that walnut brown here. Then going back to my lighter brown to blend it out towards the edges where there's quite a bit of yellow. And going on top with my indigo here. I'm going to add some lines here. You can hardly see any of those wrinkles anymore, but I'm just gonna draw some back in. And will also shade towards the bottom with my indigo. For one, to darken it up and also to have a clean edge. So even more dark colors here. Need a little bit of sepia to bring out those lines some more. And to darken even more down here. Back to those wrinkles and then bringing in some more of my yellow to just bring everything together. A little bit of indigo to outline on the top part of the bagpipe. And since I used the indigo on the lower part of the trees to shade, it's hardly visible that I used the same pencil just to outline. And I need a little more here. That's the backpack. Why do I always say backpack? It's the bagpipe, for God's sakes. Okay, I want to do those sleeves next, and for that I need what kind of pencil do I want? That's too brown, grayish, maybe a warm gray. Yeah, warm gray could fit really well. And also maybe a flesh tone, I'm not sure yet. So let's start with the light warm gray, where there's the light hitting. Everything else actually is in the dark. There's not a lot of light hitting here. So I'm going to take a raw umber pencil to just blend that a bit with the light gray. Maybe I need a little bit of a darker shade. So I'm going 2 pencils down. And I'm just gonna extend my lighter section a little more, otherwise this is all way too dark. It's gonna be dark here because this is the inner part of the sleeve. And then there were also patterns like those stripes here on the sleeve. I'm very lightly going to draw them back in with Payne's Gray, which is a cool gray and makes a nice contrast to the warm gray I used to color the sleeves. But I'm not going to draw back in all the patterns. Actually, I'm also going to use it to shade a bit and outline. Like so. Might add a little bit of white to that particular part here. Just to lighten it up a little more. Onto the other sleeve. Going to do the same thing. A little bit of the lighter warm gray in front. A little bit of that brownish yellow pencil here just to indicate that there is a shadow and that maybe his sleeves aren't the cleanest anymore. And I'm going in with my darker warm gray to shade this. Getting everything colored with a little bit of the light warm gray, blending things together. And then I'm gonna draw in the pattern again. Like so. Adding a few more lines here to clean up edges and to enhance contrast between different sections. And that would be the sleeves. Now it's only 2 more items, maybe 3 more items left, because I still have the sky to go for, but I want to start with the plaid first. Want a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Maybe that. Yeah, I think that one is a little better. And maybe a little bit of blue. But first I'm going to put in where there's the light, which is here. This is where it hits. And the rest is rather dark again. And by coloring not always in the same direction, but switching up the angles, you get a little bit of a darker coverage here on top of the acrylic paint. So I'd highly recommend you to do that. And I like that my acrylic paint underneath gives me somewhat of a texture again that looks like fabric. Actually like that a lot. It helps with just building interest on something that is rather a big section and actually a little more plain. Adding my light green again. I'm going to add a little more on other sections here, but just one layer, not as much as here on top. And then I want my indigo. Just to darken things up here on these lower parts. And I'm probably also going to add a little bit of my Payne's Gray just to darken things up even more. That's the correct pencil. Starting in the darkest spot. And adding even more layers of color to really darken up this part. just a smidge more of the light yellow green to blend things out, especially here. And then I can go in and outline my plaid here, because that section is done, which means I'm moving forward to the jacket, and once I have colored that, I can decide on if I want to change something at the sky or if I want to keep it as it is. Back in the I think it's the third video where I started coloring the background with colored pencils, I had mentioned that I would come back to the sky and see if I wanted to add some more colored pencil once I had everything else finished. Because it could be that it's actually enough, and it could be that I need a little more. All right, on to the jacket. I want to start with that here, that button. I'm just going to use a little bit of my yellow. I will very likely go on top with a little bit of Wink of Stella or gel pen later, just to give it a little bit of shimmer. But for now I'm just adding a little bit of lovely yellows. Now I can go on to the jacket. And I am going for middle cadmium red, dark red, and magenta. And I'm going to start with the middle cadmium red. Just going over everything here on that sleeve. And then moving on to the dark red, adding that underneath my back pipe here. Also here, where there is just a lot of shadows. And then moving on to magenta, darken it even more. And then I'm gonna pull in some, nope, that's the wrong one. This one here, Caput Mortuum Violet. To add even more dark bits, and also add a little bit of line work back. As you can see, I'm not coloring the upper section with it yet. Going to bring in some Payne's Gray for that. Just with a very light touch, put that on top of my reds. Then I'm gonna go in with the Caput Mortuum Violet and blend that out. course, I'm bringing in the indigo to just clean up my lines here. Also around the button. And then I can move on to the next section up here. Gonna add a very thin, very light layer of red just to get rid of the uneven parts from the acrylic paints. Then going in with my dark red. And the magenta. And then, of course, my Caput Mortuum violet. Now onto the dark shadows with my Payne's Gray. So there's quite a bit of a darker part down here. And also up here underneath the hair, it's way darker because they cast a shadow. And my trusty indigo, just in the darkest shadows. So down here, just a little bit, and up here on the between the hair strands. I only put down very little. I still let quite a bit of the red peek through. Okay. Need a little bit of a contrast here where the sleeve starts, so I'm adding just a smidge of the indigo on the other side, and now I can color the sleeve and then have the final decision on if I want to do something more to the blue sky here. Let's see. First, my middle red tone. Just a very light layer, because I have to add quite a bit on top of this section. Then onto the dark red, just making the color a little richer, make it pop. Then onto my magenta. And this part I'm going to color in chunks again with the guidance of the wrinkles that are colored in or drawn in, and that I could still see through the acrylic paint. Next section is up until this wrinkle. So first the magenta, then the caput mortuum, followed by the Payne's Gray. And the trusty indigo. Blending this out with a little more of my magenta pencil. Then I can go on to this last section here, starting off with my mid cadmium. And then the dark red. Onto the magenta. Of course, the caput mortuum to bring out those wrinkles again. And now I'm drawing in the shadows, and these are the darkest parts of the sleeve. Adding a little bit of indigo on top of these two big wrinkles here, but also here in the crest of the elbow. And then I will move my way forward around the crease of the elbow. With all my shading colors. Very light touch, of course, for you to be able to layer on top. That would be the elbow. Now I just got to take care of this section here, which of course is also in the shadow and a little dark, but not as dark as here in the crest of the elbow. So I'm going in with a very light layer of Caput Mortuum Violet. And then a little bit of magenta. Gonna take my mid-dark cadmium red here and fill in that part. And then the Payne's Gray very, very lightly from the bottom. And just a smidge of indigo to darken this even more down here. Before drawing in that line here. Because the sleeve has somewhat of a pattern as well. Okay. I will have a tiny little bit of black here, that part, because it really has to be dark. And also here on this section. Something like that. I want to enhance the shadow here. All right, now I can check if I want to do something with the sky before I put down some Wink of Stella or gel pen on that button here. But I need to tip the page for that because I have a little bit of a glare. Otherwise, yes, I think I want to have a little bit of a lighter sky. So I'm just gonna extend the light blue pencil that I had already put around the clouds. I'm just gonna extend that to the rest of the sky. And just lay down a very soft layer of light blue pencil pretty much everywhere where I haven't done so it's just that section actually. It's not that much to do. And then I'm done with the page. Da 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 da. This was a rather quick page in comparison to only colored pencils. I have to say this was not a quick page per se, but it was rather quicker than other pages in the book were. So I like that. Like I had said in the last video, I think it was the last video, I just want to move forward through the book and hopefully get this book finished in 2020. We'll see. I think I'm maybe able to finish it in 2021 because there's just so many more pages left. And there's only 52 weeks in a year, so say I have 3 or 4 parts for every page. That's 3 weeks. That's let's say I've got 40 pages left. That's 120 weeks. That's not gonna fit into 1 year, I gotta say. It's mathematically impossible. But I can maybe get a good chunk of the book finished in 2020. That's a goal in and all itself. Oh gosh, I can't talk. It's definitely time for me to finish filming for today. It's been a couple of hours. Final little bit before I move on to the Wink of Stella. Whoop whoop. So I hope you had fun. Maybe you colored along with this page. I would love to see your way of coloring this. So if you want to tag me, say on Instagram, and show me your picture, I would very much enjoy that. And I thank you very much for watching. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And I will see you next Thursday with a new page. It's going to be this one. And there's going to be a very special sort of background painted in or colored in. If you want to see all the materials that I used, all the supplies, all the specific pencils and what Wink of Stella and all of that, hop on over to my blog. The link is in the description box below. It's pinselgeschichten.de. That's my website, and you can find blog posts for all of the projects that I do there. If you happen to see this video way after it has been released, you could just go to the search bar on my webpage and type in the video title, and you will be directed to the specific blog post for this one, if it's not on the first page anymore. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. That would help me a lot. Also share it with friends whom you think should see this page and would maybe get a kick out of it. Have fun, take good care. I'm gonna see you next week with a new coloring project. Bye.